صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. صدق الله العلي العظيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بسيدنا ومولانا أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب، وجعلنا الله وإياكم من الطالبين بثأره بين يدي الإمام المنصور المؤيد المهدي من آل محمد. صلى الله عليك يا رسول الله وعلى روحك وبدنك الطاهرة. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا قتيل العبرات، يا أبا عبد الله ما خاب من تمسك بكم، وأمنا يا من لجأ إليكم. يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي فنفوز والله فوزا عظيما. وصلى الصبح مولانا بهيبته، أتاه سيف بن ملجم واستهامته، ولم يمهله في إتمام سجدته. وجبريل غدا ينعى بصرخته، فأركان الهدى هدمت وتلك العروة انفصمت. يغيب البدر في الفجر ويقتل ليلة القدر. إمام أمير المؤمنين عليه السلام, Jibreel made aza for him and was the first muazzi. He wasn't even allowed to complete his sajda in Fajr until the sword of Ibn Muljam interrupted him. The first muazzi was Jibreel when he said that surely the pillars of guidance have been shaken, and surely the right way is now separated. قتل ابن عم المصطفى قتل عليا المرتضى، قتله أشقى الأشقياء قتل أتقى الأتقياء. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ويمكرون ويمكر الله والله خير الماكرين. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. A second in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad. A third salawat in honor of the one we commemorate today, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib, with your loudest salawat and voices. My dear respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. After our Imam alayhi salam was struck fatally in Masjid al-Kufa in the 40th year after Hijrah, on the 19th of the holy month of Ramadan, the following circumstances have been not received in the attention they should be received. They have been brushed by history, and it's quite clear why. The focal point and attention is on the greatest tragedy, and that's the strike upon Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. However, the events that took place immediately after, when? After Imam was struck, before the Imam passed away, are very vital and are important, rather imperative, that we as Shia learn these moments. Why? Because in them you find that when the tough gets going, the decision making becomes critical. And we need to learn from these moments where it becomes very disastrous. Because now we find ourselves in situations where we may not be the victims of a sword or poison or anything of that matter. But if our Imam can give us lessons and wisdom and pearls and gems and valuable qiyam, akhlaqiyya, samawiyya, in light of this moment, then we can handle any moment. Because if you think of it clearly, you're not in that position. A Khariji is not chasing you. You're not a victim of multiple continents that are plotting a major agenda to exterminate you. But yet, look, when the Imam is on the receiving end of this, what lessons we can learn. Oftentimes this is brushed. Why? As we said earlier, because our attention is on the Shahadat, and typically when you discuss the Shahadat, whether it's in Majlis Aza, whether it's in Musibah, or even in Latam, you're not going to discuss beyond the Shahadat. That's it. Oftentimes that's it, which is clear where? When you look at the number of attendees, not in this community, on the 19th of the holy month of Ramadan is a big amount. On the 21st, it's a big amount, but maybe the 20th not. Why? Because it's not the day of the Shahada, and it's not the day Imam Ali was a shaheed, his martyrdom, so perhaps it's not the most important. It's very important. Why is that the case? By the way, I cannot say this applies here. Relax. I saw more attendees, alhamdulillah. Despite the commitments, despite what goes on around our lives, people show up because we are followers of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, and you should be proud of that. In any case, these events are trumped by the significant critical moment, yet they still remain valuable because the behavior and decision and gestures and the moments that Ahlul-bayt show are all lessons from us. And for us, and Rasulullah shows us, that because he, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ, and he does not speak from nonsense, he is revelation. Huwa, he is wahi. He is revelation, yuha, been revealed to him. For us, كَذَلِكَ, and likewise, his Ahlul Bayt, his very nafs, his bad'a, and his fruit and product and produce, the ma'sumin are also the same manner for us. They are the hujjah of Allah. Anything they do and they say is a lesson for us, especially post the most dramatic and critical, significant moments that transpired. We spoke the other night about the geopolitical circumstances that were responsible leading to the Shahada of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. We had mentioned that there were 5 perpetrators, and we're going to discuss the fate of all these 5 tonight, inshallah. The main man is Abd al-Rahman ibn Muljam al-Muradi, alayhi la'a'in Allah. As you all said today, and you said the other day, and you will continue to say so, Allahumma la'an qatalat Amir al-Mu'mineen. May Allah condemn the killers rather than the qatil of Ali ibn Abi Talib, because multiple came and got involved. In addition, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen himself exposes Abd al-Rahman ibn Muljam. We will see what he calls him. Imam Ali calls him something unique that has a meaning to show you the agenda that was behind Abd al-Rahman. What he calls him stands out. We will talk about this in further detail, but I'll give you a heads up. He calls him, he says, قَتَلَنِي ibn al-Yahudiyin. Interesting statement. Abd al-Rahman ibn Muljam was not a Yahudi, but I was killed by the son of the Jews. What is Imam Ali inferring here? Let's look back into Islamic history and look at the circumstances behind these 5, their fate, what happened between Darba on the 19th and the Shahada fi Sabilillah on the 21st after a very loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Abd al-Rahman ibn Muljam came forth, and alongside those that were accompanying him, acquaintances, these were Shabib ibn Bajra and Wurdan ibn al-Mujalid. These 2 got together and they all said, let's all in one motion strike Ali ibn Abi Talib. In the same masjid was the lady Qutam bint al-Shajna. She had set up a tent inside Masjid al-Kufa. If you've been blessed to go to Masjid al-Kufa, you will find it as a square. And that's similar to how it was then in addition. But in that masjid, you are able to do i'tikaf because it's the oldest masjid. It's Masjid al-Jami'. And Kufa only has this one masjid. It's the only masjid you can do i'tikaf in it. That's the condition of Masjid al-Jami', of i'tikaf. She had set up her tent. Being a lady, she wants to be able to sleep and be able to trick others that she is doing worship in the state of i'tikaf. Because in the 19th of the holy month of Ramadan, you begin the process of i'tikaf, correct? So she is using that as a headquarters, as a hub. She brings the swords there. She brings the poison. She also brings what we describe as harir clothing, silk clothing. Qutam bint al-Shajna brings silk clothing. Why? Because she wants to dress these three perpetrators with the silk clothing. Why does she want to dress them in silk clothing? Silk is haram for men to wear. Number one, who cares ahkam, haram, halal when it comes to these riffraffs? They don't give a dang and we shouldn't care about them either. But it's not for that reason. It's for the purpose of when they decide to commit the most heinous act in human history, that there has a reason for why they wear the silk. Silk was used in war. And silk, because it's very robust, would be able to prevent arrows from penetrating into the skin, from at least piercing the skin. Silk was known to be very strong and robust. It's hard to bend and rip up. And so she dressed them all in silk clothing under their regular clothing. And there's another purpose as well. Clearly, silk is silky. It's not coarse. And she had a plan. And the plan actually worked to a certain extent. That just in case, if you commit this assassination, people chase you and run after you, it would be very hard to grab you because you're very silky smooth in that sense. She thought ahead of time and she dressed all of them. When she's gathering, what goes on is interesting. She has agreed with her companions ahead of time that I will stay here. Should you need any more assistance, come and take more weapons, come and take what you need. But to avoid further escalation, don't kill Abu Turab one-on-one. It's not going to happen. Ali ibn Abi Talib is not someone you can fight one-on-one. Kill him when he's distracted. Attack him when he is praying. But don't attack him during Fajr. Why? Because he's the Imam and people pray behind him. So if you attack him during Salat al-Fajr, you don't even have time to run to him to cause that strike. So they said it's over then. La, we can attack him one-on-one. This was their conversation. La, we can attack him during Fajr. It's too crowded with people. And Ali ibn Abi Talib, people prayed behind him in folds. It's not a joke. With Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, he would lead society. And people loved to pray behind him. Salamullahi alayh. And they would say, and Abu Huraira narrates this hadith, by the way. Abu Huraira narrates this. They asked him, how did Rasulullah pray? Abu Huraira replied, Salat al-Nabi, كيف كان يصلي النبي? He says, Salatuhu ka salat al-Hashimiyin. It's like the salah of Banu Hashim today. They said, who's Banu Hashim today other than Ali and his children? Because at that time, the salah had been changed sufficiently, such that people were praying in weird manners. And so they asked, you saw Rasulullah, how did he pray? Salat al-Nabi? Ka salat al-Hashimiyin. It's just like these guys, Banu Hashim. So people prayed behind Imam Ali, even from the Nawasib that didn't like Imam Ali. Because they're like, I just want to at least make sure my salah is right. I know he's praying it correctly. That's what Kufa was, by the way. You could have in one household, the father hates Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, but the mother loves him. You can find a person whose cousin is a Nasibi, but his brother is what? Is a Muwali. A Shi'i, but then a loyal follower of Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan right here. That's how Kufa was in one household. Sometimes we complained a lot. I might have in one house, one person following one taqleed, and the other one, because they were born a later time, not able to be around during that other scholar, following another taqleed. Why is there so much disunity? Come look at Kufa. The brother used to hate Ali, the sister loved Imam Ali. That's how society was at the time. That's how polarized it was. That's what Imam Ali had to deal with, for goodness sake. So in this situation, these all gathered. What went on was the following. That she suggested attack him when he's praying. It's too hard. Why? Because there are people praying behind him. So what did they suggest? You attack him not during Fajr. When? The nafila of Fajr. Not many people pray the nafila of Salat al-Fajr, unfortunately. And only Ali ibn Abi Talib insisted on doing it. Because when Imam Ali goes to pray Salat al-Fajr nafila, which is the mustahab prayer before Salat al-Fajr, That's how you distinguish, by the way, am I truly a follower of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen? Because if I was in Kufa at the time, I always like to say, Ya laytani kuntu ma'akum, Ya laytana kunna ma'akum. How do I know I would have at least woken up for the nafila of Fajr then and prayed behind my Mawla? And at least been there to try to defend him. Well, start now by praying nafilat al-Fajr then. Because your Imam literally was struck during that mustahab salah. And people, subhanAllah, some people never change. They knew that back then, don't worry, not many people are going to pray, even from some of his so-called followers. And of course, there are those who are not followers, they're not going to pray the nafilah. So you can strike him in that salah. It's still a salah, so he's distracted. Everything is secondary, Allah is primary. But it's not wajib salah like it is Fajr, such that so many people are behind him. That's when you strike him. So then they agreed. Qutam says, I'm going to camp, i'tikaf. You guys stay in the residence of Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais al-Kindi, the fifth perpetrator. So we have Ibn Muljim, we have Qutam, Shabib ibn Bajra, Wardan ibn al-Mujalid, and Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais al-Kindi. This Ash'ath, learn more about him. Al-Ash'ath was a man who his son killed Muslim ibn Aqil when Imam al-Hussein dispatched him, Mohammed ibn al-Ash'ath. He had a hand in killing him. His son also fought Imam al-Hussein in Karbala. Al-Ash'ath's daughter, Ju'da bint al-Ash'ath, poisoned Imam al-Hassan. And al-Ash'ath himself, Mal'un, had a hand in killing Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. This is a shajara khabitha. But Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala yahdi man yasha. Al-Ash'ath, do you know about his family? 200, not 200, about 50 or 60 or about 80 odd years later, his entire lineage became Shia, such that they were followers of Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq. From their companions, you find in their last names those who are from al-Ash'athi. They were from the line of al-Ash'ath ibn Qais al-Kindi. And the surname was al-Kindi. They came from it, but they were Shia. The shajara, the tree, was so ugly. Now it's the most beautiful tree later on. So don't give up on people. From some people, you could have a good apple from a bad tree. And sometimes you can have from a bad tree a very good apple. And you can have a good tree with a very bad apple. That's okay. Don't judge people based on last name, based on who their family is. Allah judges you based on who you are. These alqab do not care and do not hold any merit. Al-Ash'ath was involved. He was the residence for these three. So you have an eye in the masjid, Qutam. You have three in the other residence, where Al-Ash'ath's house. Al-Ash'ath was a follower of Imam Ali in Siffin. He fought alongside him. When the arbitration of Siffin happened, which involved Muawiyah raising the Quran on a spear, and them suggesting, let the Quran judge us instead of fighting, which was just a trick to stop the battle because they were losing, Al-Ash'ath convinced many of the people on the side of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen to actually consider it. He was always loyal to Muawiyah. Later on, after the battle of Siffin, Al-Ash'ath joined Muawiyah. He just gave up on Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. And Muawiyah dispatched him to Kufa. No, go back to Kufa. Don't make it public that you're with me. I need you there. So Al-Ash'ath remained in Kufa. And he took care of these three. You know the famous companion of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen by the name of Hijr ibn Adi al-Kindi. Hijr, his last name is al-Kindi, from the Kinda region of Kufa. Kindi, if you're from Kufa, typically you might have that surname. Kinda is a region in Kufa. Al-Ash'ath ibn Qais al-Kindi. He's also a Kindi. Kinda from Kufa. He is cousins with Hijr ibn Adi al-Kindi, distant. One day, on the 19th of the holy month of Ramadan, in the near Fajr time, close to when they wanted to begin, Al-Ash'ath looks at who? Ibn Muljim. And he says to him that, Inhad lihajatak, qad fadahaka as-subh. Ibn Muljim, go and do what you want to desire. Inhad lihajatak. You have a desire, your hajat, go fulfill it now. Qad fadahaka as-subh. The morning is going to expose you. You're going to be mafduh. Why? Because you have to do this in the darkness of the night. In the morning, as you do this and you run away, people will see you. Hurry up, push it. Who overheard him? Who? We said who earlier? The companion of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. Who? Hijr ibn Adi al-Kindi. It appears to be the case that the Kinda family lived near each other, such that Hijr overhears him. It's not the case he was in the house with him, la. But perhaps somehow the Kinda lived near each other. Like this is the family, we live here. This is that family, we live here. We have associations of where we live. That's how Rasulullah lived in Mecca, by the way. The family of Banu Hashim lived where they were in the east side of Masjid al-Haram, such that the sun rose where Banu Hashim lived, and it set on the other end. So they would never got bothered by the sun, subhanAllah, Rasulullah and his family. Then you found Al-Ash'ath when he says to Ibn Muljam, go fulfill what you need to do. The morning will expose you. Hijr ibn Adi overhears this because he's nearby. So what does Hijr do? Hijr, you know him. He's a die-hard, and we mean it literally, die-hard lover of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. Hijr ibn Adi looks at him, he says, تَقْتُلُونَ عَلِيًّا. You seriously, did I hear that correctly? You want to kill Ali ibn Abi Talib? قَتَلَكُمُ اللَّهِ. God will kill you. He gets up immediately and he begins to run to where? The home of Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. What does he want to do? Clearly inform Imam Ali. As he is running, he gets lost on the way. Allah Ta'ala had it such that Hijr, he is panting, he is frantic. Imagine you were just told that someone's going to kill the most beloved to you in your life. You can't tolerate that. So he's probably not thinking straight. He gets lost. And if you know anything about Kufa, it's a very tight region. The houses are close, it's a bunch of alleys. And so it's very tight. He gets lost on the way. SubhanAllah. As he gets lost, he gets to the house of Imam Ali after a longer time than expected, begins banging on the doors, and then they tell him Ali has left to the masjid already. Hijr ibn Adi says, La ilaha illallah. He begins to run back to the masjid. But as he is frantically running, what happens to him again? He gets lost again. Until he hears from the skies, Tahaddamat wallah. And he says, I just missed it. Hijr ibn Adi knew and got word and notice of this. What happened to these three perpetrators, however? You would like to know that at the end of the day, those who harmed my Imam and caused one of the most heinous crimes in history, what was their fate like? Brothers, if I can request, if you can move forward. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. I second in honor of Lady Fatima al-Zahra. I third in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. As you know, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen was praying his Nafila Fajr prayer. Ibn Muljam and the crew were already waiting for him, and they were hiding, and there were very few people. The first to strike Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib was not Ibn Muljam. It was Shabib ibn Bajra. But Shabib missed. He raised his sword and he hit the top of the mihrab where Imam Ali was praying. The mihrab in Masjid al-Kufa, alhamdulillah, they've done a good job now where they've preserved the way it looked. If you go, inshallah, you'll find that the mihrab is lower than the main level of the floor. That's typically how a mihrab works. Why, by the way? Haven't you ever seen some photos of our grand ulama? When they pray and lead the salah, why are they like lower than everyone else? Have you seen this or this observation? It's like a step lower because the imam can never be higher than the ma'mul behind him. Cannot. It will give a negative look in that this man is above everyone while also leading everyone. It's not allowed. So, but you can be lower because why? The rows, if they are very large behind you, there could be elevation where, for example, they are beneath the imam. And so the imam could be lower but not above them. So just in case to account for different levels behind the imam of the rows of the people praying, they have the imam go lower a little bit. So it's like a step. Imam Ali alayhi salam had that. Especially if back then your floors were not, for example, tiled. They were just sand and straw and pebbles. And that's the way they were. They're going to have different elevations. It's not allowed that the imam is above everyone. So they would make sure they would dig a little bit. When this goes on, Shabib ibn Bajra, his accomplice, Ibn Muljam's accomplice, raises his sword. Because of the elevation difference, he swings over and he hits the top of the mihrab. And he completely misses. Wardan ibn al-Mujalid then decides to strike next. Wardan's strike, he's waiting, according to one research opinion, he struck and he hit the floor, he missed completely. And another opinion is he was waiting for Ibn Muljim. In any case, Wardan did not even cause any strike. He just was waiting for Ibn Muljim, la'natullahi alayhim ajma'in. And so he saw that it was now Ibn Muljim's turn. Shabib had missed, and Shabib begins to run immediately as soon as he fails. And in a matter of seconds, Imam Ali alayhi salam is in his sajda, he just raises his head, Ibn Muljim, la'natullahi alayh, strikes at the Imam, and you all know very well. What goes on is the three of them decide to now escape. There aren't many in attendance, and that's a tragedy. Imagine if more Muslims prayed nafilah, mustahab salah. Imagine if we did that, Imagine if Imam Mahdi comes, that's the test by the way. Imagine if Imam al-Mahdi, ajjalallahu ta'ala, farajahu al-sharif, is here, and you insist you want to be from his followers. When the Imam is praying a mustahab prayer, I hope you would be there with him. How much do you emphasize the mustahab prayers here and there? At least in Shahr Ramadhan. Something I find interesting, considering even if it's a bid'ah, Ahlul Sunnah and their Taraweeh, that was never a custom by the Holy Prophet of Islam, at least they insist on it, such that some of these youth go and they think it's actually wajib. We have a greater right to the nawafil prayers. The nafil cannot be done in jama'ah, because the nafil in jama'ah is haram, except salat al-istisqa. And only salat al-jum'ah and salat yawm al-eid are allowed in these cases. But in this situation, I want to be with Imam al-Mahdi. Okay, how much would you have prioritized the nafil al-fajr if you were in the 7th century Kufa with Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen? Would you have been there for him? You can show this with Sahab al-Zaman. Prioritize these mustahab prayers. They decide to run. As they're running, Ibn Muljim, they catch him. There are only a few mu'mineen. A few. How do they catch Ibn Muljim? They throw a blanket over him. There was a curtain, and they rip it off, some of the followers, and they throw it over Ibn Muljim. History doesn't say who exactly. You can infer that Imams Hassan and Hussein were there, definitely. They were praying because the mustahab nawafil, we don't miss it, inshallah. Ahlul-bayt wouldn't miss it. So they throw it and they catch him. Shabib ibn Bajra, what happens? They try to catch him. They grab him, but what was he wearing? The silk. Part of their plan is that if they grab you, you could just fly off easily. You could just slide right out, and he did. They grabbed him. No matter how hard they tried to grab him, he would just slip away, and he ran away. Shabib got away, but you will see what happens to him later. Wardan ibn al-Mujalid, one of the mu'mineen, grabs him and holds on to him, but he finds him very difficult to hold on to because of what we said, the silk situation. So what does he do? He's like, I can't grab onto you. So I'm going to try to sit on top of you. So they begin to wrestle and he falls on the floor. As they're wrestling, could you just imagine the scene, by the way? Mawla alayhi salam was just struck, for goodness sake. One of the perpetrators is grabbed in a blanket. The other one has just been caught but slipped away. And the third, mal'oon, is being wrestled to the ground. Imagine that scene. Imagine that. When we recite the Masab of Imam al-Mu'mineen, how many times have you heard this scene go over? Learn about these. It's of the utmost importance. Wallahi al-azim. They're wrestling Wardan ibn al-Mujalid. By the way, do you know who Wardan ibn al-Mujalid is? He's the cousin to Qatam. That lady. He's related to her. He's her cousin. So as the man is wrestling with Wardan, Wardan finds himself on top of him. But he can't let go because the man's holding on to him. So the followers of Ahlul-bayt storm the masjid because they heard from the skies, تَهَدَّمَتْ وَاللَّهِ أَرْكَانَ الْهُدَى. So now everyone is awake. And so they begin to storm the masjid. The man holding on to Wardan, the Shi'i that's holding on to him, doesn't want the people to assume he killed Imam Ali. Why? Because he is the one beneath Wardan now. So it looks like he's being restrained. So what does he do? He let goes of Wardan out of fear that they might assume he killed Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. So as he let goes, Wardan runs away. Wardan escapes. Where does Wardan ibn al-Mujalid go? He goes to a relative's house of one of his relatives. He goes to his cousin's home. The call, by the way, wasn't a mystical call in the sky. تهدمت والله أركان الهدى قتل ابن عم المصطفى قتل علي. That wasn't a mystical call. That was a universal call. Everyone heard it. It wasn't just to the mystics that heard. It wasn't just in the heavens and no one, everyone heard the call. In fact, Kufa all woke up as a result of this call. And the hadith says there was a strong rih and riyah, a strong wind, and the doors began to close as such from how powerful the wind is. It was as if the day Rasulullah had passed away. There was a reaction that just went on naturally. And this happens when members of God's closest die terrible deaths. What happened when Sayyid al-Shuhada was martyred? The skies rained blood. Marwan ibn al-Hakam himself makes that report, that the skies rained blood, and they would look at in Quds, every stone they would turn under, they found blood underneath it. Complete situation that has an involvement with nature and its natural response. That the skies turned dark, that it began to rain blood. This happens when a terrible death occurs. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen likewise, and Jibreel made that call. Wardan gets to the house, he finds his cousin awake. It's middle of the night, but he finds him awake. He says, I heard that Ali ibn Abi Talib has been killed today. Wardan says, I don't know about that. He says, let's go to the masjid. That's a problem for Wardan now. Let's go to the masjid. Wardan says, I am busy right now. His cousin looks at him and he's very suspicious of him suddenly. He says, you're coming back running to the house, you're panting. You're telling me you don't want to go and see if Amir al-Mu'mineen is hurt? Now watch, remember this. One cousin is a Shia, the other cousin is a Nasibi. That was the state of Kufa, subhanAllah. In one household, you have polarizing opinions. He's like, well, what could be more important than going to learn and see if our Imam is killed? Wardan says, I have just commitments right now. His cousin says, لَعَلَّكَ أَنْتَ الَّذِي قَتَلْتَ. Maybe you're the one that killed him. Wardan, the hadith says, he wanted to say no. Allah had his tongue say yes. He's like, na'am. How many times he kept trying to say no, Allah had his tongue say na'am, na'am, na'am. When he wants to say la, he kept saying na'am, na'am. His cousin grabbed his blade and began to lunge at him multiple times. He killed Wardan ibn al-Mujalid. And he went and left the house to the masjid himself, his cousin. And he went and saw Imam al-Hassan and he told him, by the way, one of them, I just got him. I got rid of him. Ya ibn Amir al-Mu'mineen, wa ibn Rasulillah. Shabib ibn Bajra, what happened with him? Shabib, the silk situation, escaped, literally slipped away. Shabib later on ran and stayed in Kufa in hiding. As he stayed in Kufa, after the martyrdom of Amir al-Mu'mineen, no one found him. People assumed he just got away. Until Imam al-Hassan alayhi salam made the reconciliation and the peace treaty with Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. Muawiyah came to Kufa to fulfill that deal with Imam al-Hassan. Muawiyah came to Kufa. Imam al-Hassan, making this deal, had left Kufa to go and live where? In Medina. He said, I will relinquish political power. Not my khilafah, which is my God-given right. That you can't take away from me. But I give you some terms. The deal and the peace treaty is very extensive and comprehensive. Refer back to Al-Layali al-Hasaniyya, the majalis we gave about Imam al-Hassan, 10 nights on just Imam al-Mujtaba. One of the nights we spoke about the peace treaty. As he's on his way to Medina, Imam al-Mujtaba leaves Kufa, heads where? South. He gets to the land in Iraq called modern day Diwaniyya. Back then it was called Al-Qadisiyya. He gets to Al-Qadisiyya. Imam al-Mujtaba receives a letter from Muawiyah, who had stayed in Kufa. The letter says, Ya Hassan ibn Ali, the Kufans, among them are about approximately 2,000 Khawarij. There are still Khawarij in Kufa. And I want you to come back with your men and kill the Khawarij. Get rid of them. Imam al-Hassan said, if I was going to kill anyone, I'm going to fight you. Khawarij, I'm done with them. You decided to take power, you deal with this mess. Furthermore, we have the report that Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen, in his will, he made it clear that the Khawarij, in my life, fight them. This is an interesting will, by the way. After I die, leave them, don't fight them. Why? Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen wanted Banu Umayyah to be busy dealing with the Khawarij and leave the Banu Hashim alone. So you can fight bainakum. that between you guys, you can just deal with it. Because Banu Umayyah will come in charge, and they have this entity to worry about. And actually, this happened. That's why Muawiyah says, come and help me. And Muawiyah says, no, I'm not going to help you. You deal with it. So it became a major headache for Muawiyah. That the Khawarij is now your problem. It was my father's, now it's yours. You decide to take leadership, deal with it. Be a leader. Isn't this what you wanted? So Muawiyah sees that Imam Hassan is not going to do this. And so he doesn't even want to fight them. In Kufa, Muawiyah receives the major figureheads of the city. One to give bay'ah after the other, because now he has established himself. One of the other comes and gives bay'ah to Muawiyah as such. Guess who comes to Muawiyah? Shabib ibn Bajra. And he's like, what's your name? That's how they would do bay'ah, by the way. They would go up to the new Khalifa and they would say, Assalamu alaikum ya Amir al-Mu'minin, bay'atuka fillah. I have now given you allegiance in the name of Allah. And they would grab each other's hands like this. But I need to know who you are, so I could say, I testify that you gave bay'ah to me. So Muawiyah is just sitting there in his throne as such, and one after the other people come, give bay'ah, give bay'ah. He's like, what's your name? My name is Shabib ibn Bajra, and I am the one who actually was participating in the killing of Ali ibn Abi Talib. I think this would make you happy. The hadith is very interesting about how Muawiyah reacted. He became frustrated. Muawiyah immediately said, stop the bay'ah session. I want to go home. I'm not interested to see you right now. Muawiyah immediately left, and it's unique why he reacted this way. He's like, let me just go home. He left the public venue and he went back to his house. He couldn't handle being in the presence of someone who killed Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, and he wants to now give him bay'ah. He had an epiphany and a glimpse of how evil he is. Imagine if the killer of Ali ibn Abi Talib wants to give you allegiance. How bad are you? How evil and low are you? Muawiyah had this glimpse. Wait a minute, what's going on? Subhanallah. Forget it. Let me go back home. And so, Shabib ibn Bajra decides, this is the man. Yeah, he missed when he struck at Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib and he hit the mihrab. But wallah, because you had the intention, you deserve God's full condemnation regardless. He goes and Shabib formulates the Khawarij again in Kufa. Shabib ibn Bajra begins to become the leader of the Khawarij in Kufa. 2,000 members who hate both Ali and Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan. And they turn into their leader, they turn to Shabib ibn Bajra, the guy who participated in killing Imam ibn Abi Talib. Muawiyah is not interested in fighting. So who does he go to? Imam Hassan says, I'm not responsible, it's yours. Didn't you agree? So he turns to the Kufans themselves. Not all of Kufa was Khawarij. Khawarij are just a sect. Kufans in there, they're neutral. Many of them were part of the original soldiers of Imam Amir al-Mu'minin in the Battle of Siffin. And so he looks at, Kufans, if you don't get rid of Shabib and his followers, the Khawarij, wallah, I will not sleep until all of you are perished. SubhanAllah. Muawiyah promises that I will kill all of you if you don't do what I want. Yazid later comes and actually, when he puts Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad in Kufa, those who wrote letters to Imam Hussein were all then killed later on. What goes on is the Kufans say we have no choice. The Kufans far outnumbered the Khawarij. They began to fight. This little battle, little because it was just a few days, in Kufa took place against 2,000 Khawarij under the leadership of the man who swung and missed, Shabib ibn Bajra, and thousands of Kufans. The Khawarij said something funny to the Kufans. The Khawarij says, Kufans, what's your deal? وَمَا أَمْرُكُمْ? You come now fighting us Khawarij under the orders and with the flag of Muawiyah because you're following Muawiyah's order. The other day, you same people were with Ali fighting Muawiyah. So what is it? One day, you were fighting Muawiyah carrying the flag of Ali, Kufans. Now you're carrying the flag of Muawiyah fighting us the Khawarij. Who's your leader? Make up your mind. So they fought, and in that battle, Shabib ibn Bajra died and went to the depths of hell that he deserves to go to. You had Wardan get killed immediately. Shabib, after some time, gets killed. Whatever happened to Qutam, this lady? She lived on for the next 32 years, and she stayed in Kufa. These women were very private, especially if you have a bounty over your head. And so she stayed in Kufa. We have some ahadith in my humble research that talk about her saying some poetry. But you know the most beautiful thing is? Her poetry, later on, her poetry is absolutely vile. And I'm not saying that because I have a bias. I am Team Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen here, as you all are here. No, her poetry is actually very inappropriate. It shows you the thought process of this woman. If you're interested, go later on, look, type up Qutam bint al-Shajna, look at some of her poetry. It's disgusting. It shows you that the world of profanity, haram music, the elusiveness of bad culture, it produces these types. I want to be as further as I can, as far as I could, than these people. Always associate yourself with quality and behavior that makes you think, hey, is this the same attitude and habit that the haters of Ahlul-bayt carry? Let me not be like them. I might be obsessed with some culture that, because everyone is interested in a gang culture, a very trashy culture, or a culture that emphasizes lust, money, temptations, nothing else except materialism. I can't help but notice it's only the killers of Ahlul-bayt that love this stuff. Yazid was a drunkard. Qutam loved profanity and vileness. These people did not want to pray. Again, I want to make my habits, Ya Allah, as the dua says, أحيني حياة محمد وآل محمد وأمتني مماتهم Ya Allah. So I say that, I have to mean it. I can't just talk like that. Well, I got to act. Remind yourself, is what I'm doing, is that tantamount to the actions of the killers of Ahlul-bayt? Or is this something that if I died right now, I could be like, Alhamdulillah, I died in this state. Use that as your character. Use that as the barometer at all times of your life. Is what I'm doing something I would not feel ashamed doing while I died? Whether you're listening to music or watching something. Now, if you're doing something for entertainment, if there's no hurma in it, don't feel ashamed. You are given some time in this life. Just don't do anything haram. I remember I read the will of Ayatollah al-Uzma al-Shaykh Fadil al-Lankarani, one of our Maraja who passed away, I believe, around 06, 08 in Qum. Shaykh Fadil al-Lankarani says, listen, I've been studying Islam for over 70 years of my life, and I'm a marja' deen. Let me tell you one thing. I want you to skip everything that you've ever heard about what it takes to be a good Muslim. Here's what I want you to do. Number one, just do what's wajib. That's it. And number two, avoid what's haram. That's it. And on the day of judgment, if they ever tell you, this is what you lived your life like, who told you this? Just say, Fadil told you. Ayatollah Fadil al-Lankarani. That's that. Do the halal, avoid the haram. Everything else, go have fun. Go. There's no shame in enjoying some company, some memories with your friends, with your sisters, with your brothers. Just don't do anything haram. Don't do anything wrong. And you can always have fun in this life. Allah doesn't want you to have a horrible existence. Allah wants you to have a good time. Just don't do it in ma'asi. That's it. This lady listens to poetry. And this lady listens to haram words. And she contributes it. Why am I doing what she's doing? Adri, I can't listen to anything more beautiful than the words of dua from the Imams of Ahlul-bayt. Yes, I can. No song can come near this. Now, not all music, black and white, and I know this is very controversial. You're going to make music halal? La. Not all music is absolutely haram, but a majority of it is. And you have to be the one to come to common sense. But sadly, common sense is not so common. Now, in this situation, after these all meet their fate, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, on the 20th, this all happened on the 19th. On the 20th, they bring Ibn Muljim to the Imam. We had mentioned they had captured him. They had grabbed onto him as such. And then they bring and drag Ibn Muljim to Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib, shackled. Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen was laying down alayhi salam as such, and Imam al-Hassan standing by him to his right, and Imam Hussein to his left. As Abdul Rahman ibn Muljim comes, Imam Ali looks at him. And the hadith says his eyes were raised up to his head as such, like this. They were raised up from how much he was crying, Ibn Muljim. Imam Ali looked at him and he only said one thing to him. لِمَاذَا أَبِئْسَ الْإِمَامْ كُنْتَ. Was I a bad imam for you? Why did you do what you did? And you struck me the way you did. Was I a bad imam to you? Because Imam Ali knows who Ibn Muljim was. Imam Ali saw Ibn Muljim entered Kufa the first of Ramadan. The first day of the holy month of Ramadan, Ibn Muljim entered Kufa. Where was he? We said the other night, you were all paying attention, Egypt. He comes and he's dispatched, he enters Kufa, the first day of Shahr Ramadan. His plan, he executes it the 19th. Between 1 to 19, what was Ibn Muljam doing? He actually met with Imam Ali a few times. Imam Ali would stand in the public square of Kufa and he would distribute money just like that. Dirahim and dinar, just like that. Come to Ali. If you're in need, come. One of the people that come to him was Ibn Muljam himself. I heard he's giving away free money. Even though I have to kill him, let me at least benefit from him. You take the tamar and you give the jamar back, as the saying says. You take the date and you give the coal in response. Imam Ali looks at him, says, what's your name? He says, Abdul Rahman ibn Muljam. He's like, here you go. As he walks away, Al-Asbagh ibn Nubata is right next to him. Al-Asbagh ibn Nubata, Imam Ali looks at him, he says, أُرِيدُ حَيَاتُهُ وَيُرِيدُ قَتْلِي. I want for him life and he wants for me death. Al-Asbagh says, Mawlai, let me go after him now. He's like, la. And this is the biggest trial to Ahlul-bayt, that they know the person responsible before they commit the crime, but they can't do anything because they haven't committed the crime. But Allah has blessed them with that ilm. Imagine how difficult that would be. Could you imagine? Someone walks up to you, this man will be the one responsible for so much torment. Muawiyah meets Rasulullah many times, he sees him, and Rasulullah knows what he's going to do. Rasulullah sees some of these people. He knows what this will do. He knows what's going to happen to Fatima al-Zahra by this guy and by this man and this guy, but he can't do anything. Why? Because it would be haram to punish someone before they committed the crime, and that's the biggest sabr. The biggest. We can't do that because no matter how much evidence you have on someone, if they haven't done anything, you can't jump after them. Imam Ali says, I want from him life and he wants from me death. Al-Asbagh says, let me kill him. He's like, la, you can't. On what basis? I will be a zalim then, because he hasn't done anything thus far. Imam Ali looks at him, he says, was I a bad imam to you? وَبِئْسَ الْإِمَامُ كُنْتَ. And what does Ibn Muljam say? He says a very unique response. أَأَنْتَ الَّذِي تَنْقِضُ النَّاسَ مِنَ النَّارِ. Are you the one who's supposed to free and save people from hellfire? It's as if he was mocking Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. It's as if, look, I'm burning in hell. What, do you free people from hellfire? Forget it. The thing is, Ya Ibn Muljam, he is qasim al-jannati wal-nar. Wallah, he is. But your vile and wicked nature couldn't even accept it. It's not you couldn't see it, you saw it. Wallah, he's sitting right in front of you. You didn't even have the heart to say, forgive me. I believe Ali would have forgiven him. That's the heart of Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen. Because when he was struck, the first thing he did was say, whatever I drink, give him from the same drink. Don't mutilate him. For wallah, I heard the hadith of the Prophet that Rasulullah hated to see even a rabid dog mutilated. If I die, then treat him with the same treatment he gave me. فَضَرْبَ بِضَرْبَ. But if I survive this, I know how I can best deal with him. And at that moment, Ibn Muljam was taken away and held in the cellar as he was waiting for the final call and say, and you found the Amir was then approached by the Christian doctor, Urwa as-Sululi. He began to examine the head of the Imam alayhi salam. He removed the straps over the head of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and he couldn't believe his eyes from how deep the strike was on the head of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He begins to examine, and the family nearby begins to ask him, Oh Urwa, what do you say? As a medical expert, what do you say here? He says, I think it would be best if he leaves his will now. As Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam is sitting in his place and reclining, the family begins mourning around him. On a night like tonight, Ya Mu'mineen, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen is received by all of the members of society. One after the other, they all begin offering their condolences to him as the Imam stays back and begins to see them all. One member comes and says, Ya Ali, inshallah you are well. Another member comes and says, we will pray for you. All of Kufa, one after the other, came and offered their condolences to Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen as he was laying down, until Imam saw that from those who came was Hassan and Hussein. As Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen saw them, he said, just be patient and robust, for Allah will be the one who will seek full justice. And then more came and began to offer their condolences to the Imam, until two women approached him, Zainab and Kulthum. When he saw Zainab and Kulthum, as they were crying, Imam began to cry for the first of these moments, remembering them and saying, do not weep for me now, cry a lot, laugh a little, for there will be a day that will come whereby you will be stranded and alone in the land of Karbala. Ma hiya illa al-Jannah. It's only Jannah that awaits me, for I offer you all good, glad tidings and patience. At that moment, Mohammed ibn al-Hanafiya, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen's son, comes through. At that moment, al-Baneen, Aba al-Fadl, and all the other children of Ali ibn Abi Talib begin to surround him. Imam Ali begins to give his final last will of his life, and he begins to say, having them all hear him, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, هذا ما أوصى به أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب أنه يشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأن حبيبي محمد رسول الله. This is what Ali ibn Abi Talib, the commander of the faithful, wills, that there is no God but Allah, and that my beloved Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. He began to tell his children from the family of Fatima that you are my successors after me, and he began to address the children from other than Fatima, that you are to protect them, watch after them, and follow their every lead. As then Imam began to say, your successor will be Hassan al-Mujtaba. All of you give him allegiance now, and make sure that you are forbearant on his decision making, for he will lead the successorship after me. O Hassan, be patient, for upon you will be the poison of Ju'da. And as for you, Ya Hussein, be patient and forbearant, for you will be the martyr of this nation and Sayyid al-Shuhada. And as for you, Ya Zainab, to you are my warm words of love and empathy. Stay firm on the way of Allah. As for you, Ya Kulthum, be patient in the face of adversity. As for you all. And then he begins to give them their will, his last and final promises, telling them to be calm in these times. And then he begins to say, and I want you to remember, make sure and be forbearant. Allah, Allah fil Quran. Stay firm and do not abandon the book of Allah. As Shia of Ali, we will never abandon the Quran al-Majid, as it was his dying wish. He then continued to say, Allah, Allah fil Aitam. Allah, Allah, be wary and watch after the orphans. These are his dying wishes. As Imam is bleeding profusely, it's been 2 days the Imam has continued to see that blood gush, and they begin to narrate. Imam Hassan says, I couldn't tell what was more yellow, the headband on him or his own skin, from how much blood he was losing. He began to say, Allah, Allah fis salah. Make sure you keep an established prayer. Do not abandon it in any manner. Allah, Allah fi jiranikum. Make sure you watch after your neighbors. At that moment, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen's brow began to sweat. Sayyida Zainab says, Ya Ali, why is it you are sweating from your brow and constantly wiping? He says, I heard from Rasulullah, my beloved daughter, that when a mu'min's time of death comes near, they begin to sweat from that brow. Then the Imam said the last and final will, make sure you bring for me the shroud of Rasulullah and shroud me with it. Bring me the kafur that was used from Rasulullah, for it was kafur that was sent from heaven. And make sure you bury me far away, and you, O Hassan and Hussein, will carry my janazah. At that moment, Ya Mu'mineen, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen extends his feet. He faces the Qibla. His children are weeping over his chest. Imam Ali's hand is being held on one side and his daughters holding the other side. And he begins to say with a soft voice, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah la hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And Amir al-Mu'mineen closed his eyes and his soul returned back to Allah. Mazloom, Shaheed, Masmoom Ali. Rahim Allah man nada wa Aliya. All call out wa Aliya wa Amira wa Aliya wa Amira wa Shahida wa Mazluma. Ma'tam al-Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, all together. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Keep at it. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.
شیر خدا کی لاش ہے سوئے نجف چلی. شیر خدا کی لاش ہے سوئے نجف چلی. ہر سمت ایک شور ہے مولا علی علی. شیر خدا کی لاش ہے سوئے نجف چلی. شاہزاد شاہزادیاں بابا کو روتے ہیں. حق کے ولی کو خلق کے مولا کو روتے ہیں. زہرا کے گھر میں کیسی مصیبت آ گئی. شیر خدا کی لاش ہے